Welcome to the AEW Match Guide podcast, where we deep dive into the best matches in AEW history. Brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network and your host, Sam Brown. Hello and welcome to the AEW Match Guide podcast. I'm your host, Sam Brown. Thank you for joining me. Today we continue the fourth season of the Match Guide, where we're looking beyond the ropes of Tony Khan's ring to the matches, wrestlers, promotions, and movements that influenced all elite wrestling. If you enjoy the show today, you can subscribe or rate it on your podcast app of choice, support the Social Suplex Podcast Network financially through Red Circle, and make sure you check out all of the other great shows on our network where we cover all aspects of the world of pro wrestling. We've got One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, All Things Elite, Tunnel Talk, the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast, Wrestle Art with Chris Sings, Imps AEW Adventure, and Joshing Around. You can subscribe to the Social Suplex newsletter at socialsuplex.com/newsletter. Become part of our community by joining our Discord, where you can chat with the hosts of all our podcasts, as well as other wrestling fans from around the world. Links for all of these things are in the podcast description. My guest for today has been pulled away from a mob singing "It's Coming Home" over and over again. It's the host of Imps AEW Adventure here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, Matt Mayer, aka Imp. And we're discussing Christopher Daniels versus AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe, X-Division Championship Triple Threat match from TNA Undefeated 2005. Welcome to the show, Imp.
Yes, hello. Thank you for having me on again. I remember we were having a little chat after our last recording, be like, oh, what could we possibly do next time? And Sam was telling me the ideas he had for what this new series could be like. And I threw this match out there as an idea, and Sam immediately had a reaction. Like, yes, we have to do that one. And I think it's fair to say I didn't realize just how influential and how much this match stands up. So I'm super excited to talk about it.
Yeah, as soon as you mentioned this match, Imp, as you're aware, like, I was like, yep, bang, that is one we've got to talk about. There's so much to talk about with the people who are in this match. You know, you've got Daniels and Samoa Joe, who, you know, have become big parts of AEW in different ways. And then you've got AJ Styles, super influential, just the general style they're wrestling, the X Division. And then you've got, you know, talking about TNA as more like on a whole as an organization, and the space that filled in the landscape of pro wrestling at the time, that, you know, and how AEW now sort of fills that position. There's a lot to dig into here, and I'm absolutely super happy that we did that. And I hope you don't mind me chucking in that it's coming home. I hope you haven't jinxed anything. Hopefully in 4 weeks' time or so, when this goes live, it's still coming home. There's still a chance that it's coming home.
Shall we do multiple reactions? Just do the best one. Like, oh man, out of the group stages. Oh man. Oh, congrats to Mexico. Like, you did so well. It's like, oh. I mean, it's Brazil, isn't it? Of course we're going to go out to them. Oh, it's Messi, isn't it? Of course we're going to go out to them.
I was very surprised that they bought Wayne Rooney out of retirement, but, you know, it seems to be working out for them. So that's working. I mean, no, I think we tried to start this podcast enough times. We're not going to do multiple.
I was like, I've got some Australia ones loaded. I know Harry Kuehl, Mark Viduka. Like, come on.
What's Mark Bresciano doing these days? I don't know.
Oh, fuck all. He's enjoying his life.
Probably enjoying life in Italy, probably. Let's get into this one, Imp. As we said up top, there's a lot to dig into. This is the first time we've spoken about TNA at all on this podcast. It's the first time I've spoken about AJ Styles on this podcast. What made you think of this match when, you know, I was kind of chucking ideas out there to you? What made you think of this match particularly?
Purely because watching AEW, it's completely impossible to ignore the influence of, like, X Division, specifically TNA, on AEW's current product. And especially with some of the stuff that Tony Khan books and the way he does some characters, it screams that he was a TNA fan. Just the thing that includes, so obviously, for me, the most influential, the most impactful match that seemed to completely change the tide in terms of TNA's perspective is this match. This was the one that defined them. This is the one that made them. It wasn't any stuff to do with like Jeff Jarrett or Raven or any bullshit. It was this was the match that really put them on the map. And I feel I didn't realize when I suggested it just how influential it is. I thought we might be stepping into like a template of what wrestling might become. But watching this match, you could put this on AEW TV and the crowd would be standing applauding again. Like it's that good.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree. Yeah, there's that I thought that exact same thing. I was like, if they did this today, people would still be falling over themselves to praise it. It's such a good match, and yeah, you're right. There's a lot to dig into. Let's go back to the start though, because I know you said that there's this was the match that defined it, and I don't disagree with you there. But TNA was around for a few years before this match happened. It started in May of 2002. It was the brainchild of Jeff and Jerry Jarrett. It came about hot on the heels of the launch of Ring of Honor as well, which launched in February of 2002. They, of course, came into the vacuum that was left in pro wrestling when the WWE took over and closed both WCW and ECW in 2001. And that sort of left an opportunity for a new second tier of promotions to evolve. And TNA was the biggest, TNA and Ring of Honor were the sort of the two biggest ones at the time. I wasn't following wrestling at all at this point in my life. I was cricket mad and cricket and rugby league mad and rugby union mad at this point in my life. But I can imagine at that point in time when there was that vacuum and these new promotions started popping up, it must have been like a time of so much uncertainty of, what's going to happen in the industry, but also huge possibilities as these companies pop up with a really different style and really different flavor of wrestling from what had been happening for the previous, however many years.
Like it's a really interesting period because analyzing this period really helps you understand why WWE had the reaction they did to AEW launching. Like them saying, "Oh, it's just another money mark trying to book his whatever." Well, for that to be said, there had to have been money marks in the past who were just booking whatever, and that's what this period is. Like when WCW died, ECW died, you got so many people being like, "Oh, this is big money guy is going to come in." There's some amazing stories of like things that are definitely going to take off. It's definitely going to become a thing, and for whatever reason, it falls apart. But some of them are like to do with fraud and the money not coming. There's some amazing stories in that stuff. But you also get stuff like, was it XPW? Like Jimmy Hart's massive explosions, car crash style of professional wrestling. Like you get, as you just said, you get so many different ideas and things. And it's fair to say, if you've watched any early TNA wrestling, it's a lot of throwing out ideas. Not all of them are tasteful. Not all of them work or are good or whatever. Like, sure, you watch a tiny person masturbating in a trash can. Sure, that's sure that is on the show. Sure, there's someone putting out a gun. That might even still be the same tiny person. But still, there's a lot of nonsense on these shows. You could word it as there's a lot of Vince Russo on these shows.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because as I said, I wasn't watching at the time. So I wanted to understand how historically TNA was thought of when it first launched. So I went back and looked at some Wrestling Observer stuff and looked at what Dave Meltzer had written about it. And he was kind of cautiously optimistic around TNA. He liked a number of the things that we would have liked, the young stars, the X-Division, but he didn't really like the idea of the weekly pay-per-view model. He didn't think it was sustainable. And he really didn't like the creative direction early on when Vince Russo got involved. In like the third month of the company's existence was when Vince Russo shows up, flatter straight out of finishing off WCW. He's getting another gig running TNA. I guess knowing Jeff Jarrett from that probably helped the situation. But yeah, look, Meltzer didn't like that. And yeah, as you said, there was some really terrible angles that came from the pen of the one and only Vince Russo that, when you hear about them, like you wouldn't need to say that midgets masturbating into a garbage bin is Vince Russo without, like, you don't need to say it's Vince Russo.
Everyone,
you just know it is. You just know what it is. But at the same time, this is a company that has some really good stuff and some real shining lights at it. And, the early hit for the company is, of course, the X Division, which is what we're talking about today. And it really helped the company stand out particularly from the WWE, offered something different, an alternative, this new style, fresh faces, emphasis on high flying, fast action. The X Division Championship is first won by AJ Styles, but it would feature names like, Christopher Daniels, who we'll be talking about, Frankie Kazarian, a young Frankie Kazarian, young Loki. Would feature Petey Williams, who's the person who invented the Canadian Destroyer, Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, who had later gone to become Motor City Machine Guns, Amazing Red, guys like that. It's like a real successor to the famed WCW Cruiserweight division, or like the kind of matches that RVD and Jerry Lynn or like Tajiri and Super Crazy were having in ECW. And it's like something that's totally different to what's being offered particularly in WWE. ROH is doing similar stuff as well at the same time. But this is something that is a division that's built around this.
Yeah, I remember at the time it was like it wasn't difficult sell. It was more that if you were a WWE fan and came over, it's like, oh, this is like the Cruiserweight division. No. And they tried it in their marketing where they were saying it's not about weight limits, it's about no limits. But because it was trying to explain to a WWE coded American wrestling fan things like, no, this isn't a division. This is a different wrestling style. It's a full, like watching AEW, you get different styles across the entire show. It's almost like a celebration of wrestling. But at the time, I feel like if you're going to watch this match, just try and find like the latest either episode of Raw or whatever pay-per-view WWE you're putting on in 2005 at this time. Watch one of their leading matches, then come and watch this, and you will just feel just the absolute, oh, this is the future. Like WWE at the time was stale. Like there was their brand of wrestling was just very slow. Very, like big men do slam rah pose. It was like Batista, John Cena on top at this point. For me, really boring WrestleMania matches. Yeah, Triple H and JBL were the champions before. It's like, oh god, like it's like not a great era in terms of just if you're a fan of the wrestling. But this was just suddenly like an absolute adrenaline shot. Like, oh god, no, this X Division stuff. This is the future. This is what we're bringing in, and it's, as you said as well, it's all this young talent as well. That's the other part of it. It's a similar conversation was happening back then that's happening right now, where this other rival promotion has got a ton of young talent putting on really exciting matches, and like nowadays, a lot of the X Division can feel a little bit rehearsed, like a little bit practiced with some of the spots that they're doing. But when you're watching it at the time, especially, wrestling was so slow that you didn't care. You didn't care if it was done so quickly. It was such a snap as well, which is, I guess, something we'll talk about when we talk about this match. It's not just the speed of it. It's I guess that's the indie wrestling influence of just making sure everything also has a snap and a brutality to it, which is really impressive watching this.
Yeah, like I like that you mentioned not just the style, but the fact that it was names, because, WWE had, such a logjam of names at the top. People who've been around forever, like your Triple H's, for example, who's at this point been a mainstay on TV for years and years and years. And yet these guys, you've got young people who are coming up and getting time, getting featured. And this division is built around AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, who have never had any exposure anywhere else. Daniels, I guess, was in WCW, but he's not, and so was AJ Styles. Like both of them were at the tail end, the very tail end of those, but they're not featured. They're not featured acts in those promotions, but they're the focal points of this division, and which is just, it's always, I feel like it's so easy to forget that it's just exciting to see new people coming through and getting that focus. Like, even to bring it to AEW, like a couple of years ago, it was so exciting when Swerve was just making himself undeniable. It was really exciting, and you could see Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay's a little bit of a different different scenario, because he was already like a global star, but it was just exciting seeing this fresh name come in and get so much exposure on TV. And that's what's happening here with, all these wrestlers, particularly Styles and Daniels, who the division is built around for the first 3 years until we get to 2005, which is, we'll start talking about this match specifically, because there would be a big debut in TNA in June 2005 with Samoa Joe showing up. He would show up 6 months after he lost the ROH World Championship. So in hardcore circles, he's a big name in the wrestling scene. He's had a reign of a championship reign that's still well regarded to this day. But he's very he's highly courted. There's rumors that he might be going to WWE, but he chooses to go to TNA, and they stick him in the X division. Not someone who, traditionally looks like a high flyer, but when you're talking about, it's not about weight limits, it's about no limits, Samoa Joe fits in perfectly here.
Especially if it's a little bit of a trend with TNA at this time where they would essentially raid Ring of Honor, like picking certain names and things. Like anyone who does well, like you look at the cards around this time, you see Roderick Strong, you see Austin Aries, like there's a lot of Ring of Honor names just popping up on these shows. It's interesting because obviously I'm assuming at the time hardcores were like, but this is like a world champion level act in Samoa Joe. My retort to that is I don't want to see him wrestling Jeff Jarrett or or like Raven or Rhino. Like, I don't want to be watching the older lads. I want to watch him dancing fresh with these kids. And because I didn't watch this at the time. I didn't watch TNA till like 2007, but it's one of those where it's such an influential, if I say influential match, it's the people in it as well. The three of them would go on to shape TNA for quite a long time after this. Christopher Daniels, unfortunately got dicked about a bit, Curry Man, suicide. He got put under some gimmicks, which kind of sucks. But his style of wrestling, everyone who comes afterwards are almost trying to imitate what this was able to do. As much as I love Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt and the names that come slightly after this era, I feel like this shaped what the X Division was going to be all about going forward. And Samoa Joe being that bigger guy, but the fact that it's about the style of wrestling, and I feel like him being inserted really cemented that. Like they elevated the X Division rather than the X Division bringing him down. It really cemented him as a character. And the dynamic amongst the three of them, which we'll get into, is interesting, even though we're not going to be glowing about the build. But it is I feel like the actual dynamic for the match really works with where the three characters are at, even though the build's nothing. But
Well, it's funny because the build is like such an encapsulation of TNA at this moment, because it's a tournament, right? Which is like a real sporting thing. It really suits the idea of the X Division. You've got Samoa Joe versus Sanjay Dutt, Alex Shelley versus Shocker, AJ Styles versus Matt Bentley, and then Chris Sabin versus Petey Williams. Goes into the semifinals, Samoa Joe versus Alex Shelley, AJ Styles versus Petey Williams, two really exciting matches, real fast pace, under 10 minutes sort of stuff. And then the final is Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles. So like you just hear that and it's like, oh, this is like a real sporting thing. This is like New Japan-esque almost, like, New Japan Cup or something kind of thing, Super J Cup. But then you find out what actually happened in the final, and it's like, oh, this is some classic Vince Russo convoluted booking here. We've got, so Joe beats AJ Styles in the final of the tournament, but it comes after Christopher Daniels interrupts, trying to cost AJ Styles. So for some reason, Christopher Daniels is like, I want to face Samoa Joe, as if that's a good idea. Sense. Okay, it makes perfect sense. Obviously, he is afraid monster. He is, of course, he's tried to not face AJ Styles because AJ Styles is his long-term nemesis in here. But, the other option on the other side is not exactly a good one for him. Maybe think about taking Joe out early on and trying to get Sanjay Dutt through this tournament, at least.
We're seeing it.
You're going to go that way.
We're seeing it done right now in AEW with MJF trying to not face certain people.
Yes.
And he's ended up boxing himself where no matter what the result is at the next pay-per-view, he will have to face somebody who has defeated him within the past year. And it's like, it's just done so massively and so well. And then we switch over to this. It's like, well, why would he want to face Mojo?
And then, well, of course, Daniel's being smart. This is a smart thing to do. He attacks Joe in on their weekly TV show. He beats him up, and AJ Styles comes out to get revenge on Christopher Daniels, and then in a classic case of things blowing up in the heel's face, Daniels would then demand that Styles gets suspended for beating him up, but instead Styles would be inserted into the title match to make it a three-way match. That's the result. That's a good result. It's a good result for everyone because we get this match out of it. But, there's some classic, very odd leaps of logic from Vince Russo there. And, I feel like that's a good encapsulation of, the good and the bad of TNA at this point in time.
It's just, it builds and builds, and it gets to that point where Spike were being promised that Vince Russo was no longer writing on the show. And then he got exposed that he was writing on the show because he accidentally messaged Mike. Is it Mike Johnson, a PW Insider?
I thought it was John Alba. Maybe it was Mike Johnson. It was some journalist.
It's because apparently he was meant to message Mike Tenay about creative plans and then accidentally messaged Mike Johnson. It's just amazing.
And Spike has been like, we told you not to get this person. We don't want him booking TV. And they were like, okay, we won't. And then they go back and have another meeting. They're like, okay, we've got to hide Vince Russo.
Yeah.
Not do what these people who are paying us lots of money to want. Going to instead hide Vince Russo because he's so integral to what we do.
It feels mental to talk about that happening now. It's just such a weird...
Oh, okay. That skipped through ahead a few years there, just a few years, but... and then an accidental email got sent. Anyway,
yeah, it's hilarious,
crazy. Okay, let's get to the match. Let's leave the booking aside. Let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to this match because it's, as we've already said, it's a fantastic match. So Dave Meltzer rated it 5 stars. Sorry, I've got to give it the proper wind up. As we always do here on the Match Guide, let's give the match its flowers. Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer newsletter, gave it 5 of the big ones, 5 stars in a time when 5 stars was quite rare, actually, particularly in America. Cage match, as of today, it's currently rated 9.67. That's currently the 20th best match of all time on Cage Match. It's the highest ranked 3-way match of all time. It's the highest ranked TNA match of all time. TNA's first ever 5-star match. It's the highest ranked match on Cage Match for any of the 3 people that are in it. This is a match that is very well regarded, both at the time and historically, even up to this date.
Well, it's kind of like measure it really. It's TNA's only ever 5-star match. They've never had another one. And that includes the Ospreay era where he was wrestling like Bailey and Josh Alexander in amazing matches. Like not even those matches got the 5-star treatment from Meltzer, but this one did. And it totally stands up.
In an era where 5 stars was thrown around a lot less than what it
a hell of a lot
today.
less.
Yeah. So we do get a video package beforehand that makes that very convoluted build up seem actually quite cool, and it's got a really cool voiceover. Like I feel like they got an imitator of an American sports announcer that's very well known. I don't know the names of people, but it sounded very familiar. But I doubt they had the budget for the real person.
They had a guy that did it for years and would do like the start of their shows and everything. I can't remember his name, but it was a big deal that they actually had him. And he was amazing. He did voiceovers like that for every single thing. I was about to say a woman kicks in, but then I remembered no, that was the football intro for the whole show overall, which is
there is a
really
woman
weird.
Voice that kicks in at different points as well. Yeah.
Oh, she did it for this as well. Yeah, it's a really weirdly framed show because something I didn't realize, this was on 9/11, so this is a 9/11 celebration of America, as well as for some reason framing it like a big football thing. Like I don't get, it's not even football season. I don't know why this is a thing. TNA's weird. Vince Russo, we've already talked about it. But they did. I'm assuming they had those people for the intro. Why not use them for this, for your main event? And it just really gives it such gravitas. I've always loved the guy's delivery. And I remember at the time people were like, why couldn't WWE do this? Because it's so good and works so well. And I watch it now, I'm like, oh, but it's very TNA. it fits their vibe so much better than it would. It wouldn't really make sense for WWE to do it like that at the time.
No. Feels very of the time, just the way it's edited, the music, the voiceovers, but in a good way, like in a good way. So Joe's out first. They have round tunnels, which I'd forgotten. Hardly the first promotion to ever have round tunnels, but still like a cool little link there between AEW and TNA. Joe has barely changed his look since then. I guess if something works, then just stick with it. Styles and Danielson are out straight afterwards, and everyone looks so young. Everyone comes out so quickly. There's like hardly any gap between them. They're not taking heaps of time to pose in the ring or anything.
They don't have far to walk. Was it 770 odd in attendance for this? Like, it's a smaller Orlando studio.
Yep. And I have mentioned that that these guys are all young at this point, but apparently Christopher Daniels is 33. I feel like this is a man that sprung up out of the earth, aged 30 years old and bald. I don't believe he was ever younger than that.
Because that was part of the AEW story. It was like he was a 50-year-old man at that point doing stuff.
Before we get into anything else, because the first thing you're struck by, if you look at this match and you go to this match and you haven't watched TNA for a while, is the 6-sided ring. So it was a real feature point of TNA at various points. It was originally introduced in 2004 as a way to stand out, as something that would kind of make the company feel a bit different from WWE and other wrestling that was out there. And they've gone back and forth on it different times. Different management and wrestlers have, very different split views on it, whether they liked it or not. What do you think of the 6-sided ring, Imp?
Visually, absolutely love it. I say production-wise, it's very clear that they can't actually move the camera equipment around the ring, which is a bit of a problem. As in, you see some good creativity because they can't do that during this match as well. But there's production hindrances. But the biggest one was hearing from the wrestlers themselves, saying that bumps on that had far less give. It would hurt far more than a standard wrestling ring. And at that point, I'm like, as much as I find it cool, I'd rather the wrestlers were, not hurting themselves to that level for it. I'd rather just go for 4 if it's that bad.
Yeah, because they started out with it. They started out with a standard ring. 2004 changed to the 6 sides, and they keep that until the 2010s. The Eric Bischoff, Hulk Hogan era. They then go to a fan vote in 2014, and the fans vote to have the 6-sided ring back. And then in 2017, under Don Callis and Scott D'Amore, they decide to get rid of the 6-sided ring and go to a 4-sided ring, which they've been using since. Man, seeing it, like, it's such a striking thing. And wrestling is traditionally in a 4-sided ring, but this felt at the time, particularly because I remember when I started watching wrestling in 2008, and then flicked over to TNA. I was a UFC fan as well at the time, and I was like, "Oh, this feels futuristic," because it's happening in a hexagon. Which, I don't know. I kind of wish they'd stuck with it, even though, as you've said, like the wrestlers seem to prefer the 4-sided ring for comfort reasons, so to speak. And there's the production limitations. It's just at the time, and I wasn't someone that watched TNA religiously, so maybe it did start to feel naff after a while. Maybe they moved beyond wanting to have that sort of differentiator, but man, just watching it at the time, it felt futuristic, it felt cool, felt different. And particularly when you're looking at the X-Division and the kind of brand of wrestling that is saying, it's like, we're wrestling in the future. Having something like a 6-sided ring to sort of pair with that just creates a whole presentation that feels future coded and feels exciting, feels new, feels fresh. Particularly when the people in it are doing what these guys are about to do.
I feel like it really fit the faster styles, or I guess like a lucha style would fit really well in this, and obviously the X-Division style fit really well in this ring. And maybe it highlighted the older folk in the main events, because I know we've talked about how great this is. There was also a lot of crap in this era. The main event scene is the has-beens. That's where they all go. And then the undercard is genuinely pretty good. Like, even the tag division's fresh new faces as well. But But it's a kind of, maybe the ring as well, maybe highlights when you're watching an older person slowly walk about. And it's like, oh, when you know what these ropes could be used for, and they're just not. It really gets highlighted when you're watching those main eventers. But it works so well for the X Division.
Yeah.
Like, I picture the X Division when I picture the ring.
Oh, 100%. And even just like, funnily enough, because we're talking about a triple threat match, I think it works particularly well for a triple threat match because there's a bit of extra room in it, and there's sort of corners for people to hide in a little bit. So rather than someone having to roll out of the ring, they're sort of just like off in a little corner themselves. There's a little bit, it feels like there's a little bit more space because of the way that the ring is set up. Anyway,
we have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Let's move along. So as the bell rings, Styles and Joe, they immediately go after Christopher Daniels. They're beating him up and then competing him to see who can kick him in the back the hardest. After they deal with Daniels, Styles like rushes at Joe, tries to get a series of like fast, like technical pinning combinations, and Joe then like immediately transitions to a submission that Daniels breaks up. I really like how quick they are to establish like that rivalry between Styles and Joe, and how Daniels is going to have to best both of them if he's to retain the championship. But Styles and Joe like really seem to have eyes for each other.
I like how this just set the stage of, even though this is a TNA main event, it is going to be an X Division match. Like, they're not going to be slowing it down to go the full 20 or something. No, we're going at this pace for the 20. And I really like it. It's like a tone setting, like first few minutes for it.
Actually, you're right. I didn't mention that before. This is the main event of the pay-per-view. It goes on after the NWA title that is the heavyweight championship for TNA at the time. So, you know, it's a featured spot for these guys. The first major spot of the match, we're not going to go in at blow for blow. There's going to be times where I'll sort of get into the nitty gritty of it, but we're here all night if I'm trying to recount every single move these guys do. But the first major spot of the match comes a few minutes in. Daniels sort of sends Joe to the outside, hits a springboard split-legged moonsault off the top rope, and then AJ Styles runs up and hits a beautiful springboard shooting star press onto both of them. Let's talk AJ Styles, man.
Oh my God.
Seeing him soar in this period of career, this guy just flew like no one else. It's like he had springs in his legs or something.
I mean, what I love about that sequence you just talked about, the entire sequence was just one shot with the like ringside camera guy. It's so good. So it means that you see Daniels do his stuff, and then you see AJ come in, and you're like, oh, what's he going to do? And then when he inverts with his springboard, it's like, oh, God. Like it's the fact that they had to build up to it as well. I really like that introduction note. And the fact that it's a setup for later, which we'll get to. But the AJ in this one, like, it hit me when he did his like the baseball slide and then rebound off the ropes, he does the drop kick. That was so fast, fluid with a snap and everything. Like, I don't know if he did change it a little bit for WWE to be a bit less impactful because it's WWE. But watching it here, I was like, oh God, yeah, he had like a genuine like speed and snapness to these moves, which is really caught me off guard. He's not just flying well, like he's hitting harder. Like, it's really impressive.
Even like the way he hits his drop kick. You mentioned the drop kick, like the way he flips off with the drop kick. It's like he kicks them and then launches higher off the top of the drop kick to do like just this perfect, beautiful backflip off the top of the drop kick. He is such a beautiful, precise wrestler to watch. And yeah, like that, the shooting star press you're talking about, there's a Google image. I tried to make it work for the image for this podcast, but I couldn't because, you know, I'm doing a like a more horizontal image and this needs to be vertical. And he is just like completely upside down, just hanging in the air so high above Daniels and Joe. It's such a beautiful springboard. You know, later on he does like this spiral tap, corkscrew, spinning dive, and And even just the way he bumps about, like there's spring and explosiveness to it. There's a lot of like sort of Kota Ibushi or peak Kenny Omega to, you know, how this guy is just exploding across the ring.
I think that's one thing that actually describes this match pretty well is every guy, especially AJ and Samoa Joe, they do have an explosiveness to them. And obviously, like with Joe's offense, obviously in AEW, we've got used to him being a little bit slow because, he's getting on a bit. He's not a spring chicken anymore. But like here, it's just such a speed to it. Like he's able to keep up with AJ Styles doing his like fast kicks and spins and things. Like Joe is right there with him in terms of like countering him, grappling him, doing his own spins and whatever. Also his own dives, which we'll get to. Like they are. It's the fact that, and obviously Daniels is almost like the piece. He's the glue that holds it all together. But it feels like, I don't know if the match was designed to be a showcase to Styles and Joe, but it really just you come out of this match just so impressed with both of them.
So something that shines to me when I was watching this match is the structure of it. So often with triple threat matches, you get like a series of singles matches almost, and then like
my least favorite flow.
Really
I hate
rehearsed and obviously telegraphed and set up spots that involve all three. But most of the time, it's just two people do something. One person hits a big move. One rolls to the outside and just lays there for minutes when they'd normally sell for, maybe 10 seconds off the move that they've just taken. But in this, it's absolutely not that. There's hardly any artificially like long times where the other two are trading for like minutes and minutes, particularly early on. Instead, there's like just constantly trading offense, jumping from one opponent to the other, like immediately interrupting each other's kind of as they're trying to get a combination going. And then there's like so many like three-way sequences, but there's absolutely no hesitancy or waiting in between them. Like after that dives that we were talking about, there's a really good example of this where it's the kind of thing that could look super convoluted if one person is just like in place a couple of seconds beforehand because you'd see them waiting. But instead, it's just executed so smoothly. So what happens? Daniels, he tries to Irish whip Joe into a corner. Joe reverses it, sends him into Styles, who's just gone to a corner. Daniels, like at stutter steps, stops himself, grabs Styles, tries to monkey flip in midair, and then Styles kind of midair changes again that into a Hurricane Rana on Joe. And like that's a series of moves that, like, as I said, if someone was waiting too long, it would just immediately look telegraphed. Or if these guys weren't just so precise with their movements, would result in like a completely sloppy looking botch. But instead, there's just like this crispness to everything. Everything's connecting. Everyone's in their spot right at the moment that they need to be, not a second late or not a second early. And it means that there's such an organic flow, even though this is obviously like something that they've set up to happen.
I mean, it's exactly what we're talking about with some of the other X Division guys, like further down the line from this. Like, as much as I love Jay Lethal and Sanjay Dutt, what you're talking about right there does happen in their matches. You do feel like it's a bit choreographed, a bit too practiced. But here, I guess it's something we can praise Will Ospreay for as well. Where if someone was trying to do the Will Ospreay match, and I guess, well, maybe a younger Will Ospreay is a good example for it, where it does just feel a bit set up and not quite as like quick flowing into the next thing. Because if you get the flow right, it feels like it's building rather than a choreographed dance. And with that sequence you talked about, it just builds. It goes so quickly from one thing to the next, where you don't have a time to breathe to even guess what the next bit's going to be. And then it just evolves. And by the time AJ does that Rana, you're just so pumped because you've just been waiting for whatever it's going to be. And just watch the crowd when he does that Rana. Like, they absolutely explode.
Yeah, Rich Latta was recently talking about the Ospreay Ricochet match and how people say that there's no psychology to it. But his and my argument is that there's like immense psychology to all the counters and all the dodges that these guys are doing. Because if wrestling was real and you're an athletic high flyer, like if your advantages was your like agility, your speed, and your ability to kind of quickly move to counter or feint or throw off your opponent, that's exactly how you would move. And this is an example of that. Like these guys, because they're so quick and athletic, like this sequence where they're like reversing, stutter step. I'm going to adapt quickly to counter. I've just got chucked in the air, but I'm heading to this person. How can I turn it to my way? I'm going to turn it into a Hurricane Rana and get Joe. Like that's that is actually psychologically super sound for how these guys would wrestle, given the styles and the strengths and the athletic kind of wrestling that they are good at.
And I think we talked about it. I talked about it when we talked about the build, but just the three characters of where they are in terms of how they fit in this match. Where you have got Daniels as that. At the time, he said the longest reigning X Division champion of all time, and then during the match, they're like they've had it. He's held it for a whole 6 months. It's like those are the days when 6 months was seen as a long title reign.
Yeah,
all times have changed.
Yeah,
But yeah, they you see, got Daniels as that kind of sneaky heel trying to keep his title. You got AJ Styles, who is the pure babyface. He's going to impress you by just how amazing at wrestling he is, how incredibly athletic he is. Then Samoa Joe is the undefeated monster. And he can dance between both roles, essentially. Like I feel just for a setup of a match, even though the actual way we got there was a bit, Vince Russo, the actual structure of the characters before we even get to what they decide to do with it in the match, it feels like it's just so perfectly set up. And they lean into it in the match itself. Like all of those characters, they're lent into that way. Like Samoa Joe, like I think his most snappy moment, I think at some point, Christopher Daniels, it might be later on when he's got the title, he's trying to like take advantage of what we just talked about, like a sequence between AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. And then without, he's about to swing in and he runs in to hit Joe. And then Joe just hits the most amazing slam, just completely spins him with such force.
Yeah. And Joe, like in particular, as you said, like he really is able to keep up with Styles and Daniels. And midway through this match, he like really starts to take over because he's not only is he bigger and stronger physically, but he can keep up and he's like just as fast. And so the impact that he can make is so huge. And there's the complete and the obvious example of it is when he just throws himself, he hauls himself over the top rope onto Daniels and Styles. This is almost like, I feel like this is the peak the peak moment of this match, really, almost. There's a number of peaks, and the ending also is like this, but this is the image that I have from this match, and that just blew me away was Joe just throwing himself to the outside, the same place where they did that dive sequence before, but this time it's Joe putting the exclamation mark on, and it's not quite as graceful as AJ Styles, but man, that bloke soars.
For me, this is my production note for it, where we talked about the limitations of not being able to, like, you're not going to get a panning shot walking around the ring. They can't physically get around the thing. Like, it's just not going to happen. But what they do is they all do a dive at the exact same spot. And we did the Daniels one and the AJ Styles springboard in that section. Then they have a whole match. A load of things happen. Suddenly, AJ Styles and Daniels are on the outside brawling, and they do the exact same shot. They're brawling, the ring's behind them. This time you see Samoa Joe rising. And it's not like, he's climbing to the corner. What's he going to do? It's like, no. They just repeat the shot. And you know what happened the last time we did this shot. I just love it in terms of setup and payoff. When Samoa Joe does it, it's the most earned dive in the world. And he absolutely soars, even rotates in the air, slaps his thigh on the concrete because the pads only come so far out. But for me, just in terms of like production setup and payoff, that was the most satisfying point in the match. And as you said, it's also like the peak in terms of momentum and everything.
While we're talking production, I've got to shout out Mike Tenay and Don West on comms.
Oh, yes.
Man, I really enjoyed their partnership, especially like the energy that they give. And it works so well with this match. Like they completely feed off the energy of the crowd and the wrestlers. And that like helps communicate to you as a viewer that what you're seeing is greatness in real time. And I think one of them actually says at one point, this is one of the greatest matches you will ever see in your life. And that's the kind of thing that wrestling commentators will throw around at times, and you just like hear it and you're like, no, you can't say everything is the great. If everything is the greatest, then nothing is great. But in this moment, it's like, yes, this perfectly sums up what I'm watching right now. Like I feel like I'm watching greatness, and the energy and the enthusiasm from just adds so much to the excitement that you're feeling as you're watching these guys just go out there and have an absolute classic, and just burn the house down.
I feel like it's a timing thing as well, which Don West is always really good at. I guess that's his like marketing TV salesman background, but it was the timing of when he would say a line like that. Like, you don't wait until the crowd are like doing that amp thing where they're building up and they're rising. That's not when you say it. You say it when the crowd are at their peak, or like we're talking about when Joe's just done his dive and then everybody's going crazy. You say it then because everybody's going crazy, and you're like, "Yeah, this is crazy." Like, if you feed off it, it works really well. But throughout because obviously they do the same with shit matches, and it doesn't work. Like when Don West is getting really excited for Raven hitting the DDT on Jeff Jarrett, you're like, oh, whatever. But for the X Division, it really works because the energy is there. You're feeding off the energy. It's what I talked about with WWE camera work, where we do like loads of quick cuts and the thing to make it feel like these crazy actions happening. And I was like, but what they're doing is just slow punches. What you're filming is not fast and exciting. So there's a juxtaposition. But if you were to do it in an X Division match, it will make sense because there is crazy stuff happening, diving all over the place. Like, how are we going to cover this? There's too much amazing going on. They're like the commentator equivalent of quick cuts in that there's so much high energy. Where in a slower match, it can help you bounce off it a little bit. But in a match like this, it's absolutely perfect.
Yep. Can we just fanboy over AJ Styles a little bit more? Because there's, as we move through this match, like 2/3 of the way through, there's just like another really great sequence that we're taught that you kind of mentioned before as well, where they all hit their biggest moves. So like Joe hits a muscle buster on Styles. Daniels like interrupts and Joe goes the Coquina clutch on Styles. But Daniels like grabs the belt and Samoa Joe ends up with it. Daniels kicks it into his face. He does his best moonsault ever. But the pin is interrupted. Like there's barely a minute between each of those. But the thing that stood out to me and the thing that I've noted down is AJ Styles. Like, not only does he have this incredible high flying things, but he's like so strong as well. And like his moves are so highly impactful. He gets Joe up in a torture rack and spins him off his shoulders, like almost like an F5. And then you've got the Styles clash as well. And I'm just like thinking how I remember the first time I saw the Styles clash, I was like, I've never seen a move like this before. And it looks so impactful and cool. And yet he's like got to be strong because he's got to hold the person up for it. And yeah, like, man, AJ Styles, what a package at this moment. I know people would give him critiques that like he can't promo, he doesn't really have a character. But man, in the ring, he is just a complete package at this point.
Like watching this, it's often described as like the Will Ospreay pace of like the way that how fast you roll through into the next thing. But you watch this and you're like, oh wait, no, he's wrestling at an AJ Styles pace. Like this, it's so impressive. How he sets up the Styles clash for the finish in this, that quick sequence with Daniels, it's so good. It's so impressive. It's that feeling like you feel like it's going back and forth so incredibly quickly that when suddenly AJ Styles rises up in the Styles clash, you're like, oh shit. It's just so well done at just giving you that emotion.
Yeah.
You can't help just feel amped and popped when he hits it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like the final moments of the match, it's another like just another great example of how organic and fluid all the three-way moments in this match happen and how they feel. So Joe, like he tosses AJ Styles out of the ring, and then on the other side of the ring, Daniels sort of baits Joe to charge at him. Daniels dodges out of the way at the time, and Joe, his momentum, like sees him flying out of the ropes, smashes into the guardrail. Like he just goes through those ropes with so much momentum and into that guardrail, and that leaves Daniels and AJ in the ring. They like trade shots in the center of the ring. Daniels gets an irate, which allows him to like put on the Angel's wings, but Styles like holds onto the arms. He just does, it's kind of like a suplex. I guess it's some kind of a dragon suplex or something. Or butterfly suplex, maybe. I don't know. I'm not Excalibur. But he holds onto the Angel's wings. He suplexes Daniels over the top of him, and he bridges on top and holds Daniels down for the 1, 2, 3. Like just another great sequence. Feels so organic. And then the ending is kind of exciting and almost out of nowhere because it's not one of their finishes. It's a counter to a finish, but he holds him down and gets the 3.
I feel like it's the thing I love about it is it does use some like wrestling expectations so that when a certain thing happens, you're like, oh, this might actually be the ending. And as you're saying, the way that they do it when it's not an actual finisher. Like when it comes to a big monster in a match like this, there's only two ways that monster's getting taken out. Either they take themselves out with a big charge, which is essentially what Joe does in this one, or they get kicked in the dick. And that's it. That's the only way you take out a big monster. So as soon as Joe does that dive and he's completely taken out, there is that, oh, crap. So there's the open. This is the opening for the late stage of the match. And then they finish it before they actually get to like the next big sequence. It's a really good way to surprise you with the win.
And it makes sense as well. Like Daniels and Styles are the two people this division has been built around. They've wrestled before. So of course they've got counters to one another. And AJ Styles just happens to pull out a counter and makes it work. And Daniels isn't ready to counter it because, you know, he hasn't done it before. So it just makes sense that this is a way that a match could finish. And it also looks really cool because it's a highly impactful move and he's holding him down with the arms. There's no escape for Daniels, no easy escape. And AJ Styles wins. It's really, really good sequence that features all the hallmarks of this match that we've been talking about and sort of makes sense. This is a feature slot for the division that's sort of there to highlight the incredible work that's been getting done. And it's kind of fitting that it does come down to Styles and Daniels at this point. You know, they're the two standouts in the division. The new interloper, he's sort of hoisted on his own petard and it comes down to these two. And yeah, as I said, Mike Tenay as well, immediately, like he sums it up and he's awesome in this moment. He says, we've witnessed something special. It's such a fantastic ending to what is an absolute classic of a match.
Because I guess there is a bit of a emotional mirror to the Ospreay Ricochet match you brought up, where when that happens, you feel like this is the new thing when you were watching it, and just especially you really have to put yourself in the frame of mind of 2005, just how incredibly slow the style was at the time to get a match like this, which feels modern today, 20 years before we get to what it actually is. And let's talk about the other X Division matches. They're not all as fluid as this. You do get a feeling of choreography within them. But with this feels like a modern match, like well before you get to anything. And the fact that it still stands out as one of the actual best examples of it it's just an absolute testament to it. I mean, I've tried to like mail in the influences of this match onto like the current wrestlers and whatever. But obviously, Joe still is wrestling, which is probably the biggest thing we can have. Because I can't remember how many years it was until WWE themselves started to adopt like the lighter wrestlers and things. Like towards the end of this decade is when they finally start bringing in those lighter guys with your Daniel Bryan's, you see them when they brought in their Ring of Honor people. Like TNA were like half a decade ahead of them.
Man, thinking about triple threat matches, like, is there a better triple threat match? I'm just kind of going in my head through the catalog of the best triple threat matches I've seen. You know, the classic ones, the WrestleMania 20, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Chris Benoit. Then you've got
that's one that goes to my head.
Yeah, then you've got the Royal Rumble 2015 one's really well regarded with Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, and John Cena. I, of course, love the Shield triple threat that happened at Battleground. Not as well loved critically by everyone else, but you know, one day I'll do a piece on that. Come fight with me in my Discord about that one.
I think it's because all of those matches have there's a sense of this is what WWE feels like as a 5-star match. You know what I mean with Lesnar and the whole table thing.
Yeah,
like there's in all of those matches, there's something like that which kind of takes away from it ever being able to get to that higher tier. Or even though they are good matches.
Yeah, even if I'm thinking about the sort of some of the big ones that AEW's done, like the Kenny Omega, Pac, and Orange Cassidy one, like
that's just it's not the
it doesn't have the action that this one has.
I was thinking Okada, Takeshita, and Dorada. That was exceptional, but it's not got that snap that this one has from like minute one.
Yep. And a lot of it comes down to, I think, it's just capturing these performers at this point in their career when they're so young, still so fast and hungry, and they're looking to make a statement as well.
Yeah, this is them almost just showing off. This is the style that we do. This is when they're trying to do it at the best ability they can to really showcase it. And I mean, yeah, accidentally created the style of the future. It's that impressive, and not just for TNA would go, but not just for AEW with the indies. Like WWE, as we're saying, they were half a decade late, but they were almost forced into it. This is what the fans wanted. They didn't want that slow plodding style. Even to this day, yes, you got the monologue era, but you still got the Seth Rollins and that, like, doing that quicker, faster style. There's lighter guys in the ring. But yeah, the future of wrestling was kind of shaped by this match and the way that it was going. There is a trend as well of indie wrestling kind of shaping what the future of wrestling ends up being. And obviously these guys came from Ring of Honor and got to showcase it here. But we cannot understate that this is just a modern AEW TV match. In a way. It's that level of good. Like, and 5 stars, which is, it would still get to this day. You feel it when you watch it. You're right there with this crowd.
And talking about the 3 guys that are in this, it's amazing that all 3 of them did go on to have very successful careers. Funnily enough, though, like none of them went on to be the guy in TNA, unfortunately. Like Samoa Joe had a big undefeated run and was at the top of the promotion for a brief amount of time, but it felt like he was sort of overtaken by Kurt Angle and then really put on the back burner and sort of just kicked rocks for a while. AJ Styles, they tried at the top a few times, but never really, like, I don't think they ever really made it work with him as the guy in TNA. And I don't think Christopher Daniels is the kind of person who could have that position, but he also, went on to be very successful in the late 2010s in like the SCU gimmick and was a sort of a pivotal person in the founding of AEW, I would argue, in being a big featured part of BTE and the popularity of that. And then, of course, Joe would go to WWE afterwards. He would become NXT champion. He would have championship matches in WWE and ultimately become an AEW champion when he eventually transitioned across and has managed to maintain a featured position in AEW to this day. AJ Styles, of course, he was a top guy in New Japan after he left TNA and founder of the not founder of the Bullet Club, but leader of the Bullet Club. After Finn Balor left, he got made the leader, IWGP champion, and then debuted in WWE and against all odds went on to become a top guy in WWE under Vince McMahon. A guy that at this time people thought would be someone that Vince McMahon would never want to have anything to do with. I'm sure the door is always open in AEW for AJ Styles if he wants it.
I mean, especially when they've got Wembley and Will Ospreay just being like, please, AJ. Yeah. Tony Khan 100% would throw any money to do AJ Styles, Will Ospreay. Like, there's no question about that. But yeah, the TNA career of these guys, there's always this feeling in TNA that they weren't going to get behind their actual younger talent. And then they eventually did with Bobby Roode and James Storm. But it was always with like a caveat or something. Like, yes, they're having their great battles over the belt, but eventually we're going to get it back to a former WWE guy or something like that. There was always that feeling. Like, so even when they were getting behind somebody, like there was a Jeff Hardy waiting in the wings, or like Jeff Jarrett was always there.
Or Kurt Angle in the case of Samoa Joe.
Yeah, so there was always a caveat. So really Joe and AJ especially should have become these main guys. Daniels got shoved in, I talked about it earlier, but he got shoved into crap gimmicks or things. Like suddenly he takes over the Curry Man gimmick. Suddenly he's doing the Suicide gimmick, which was the name of their like mass superhero guy. He got shunted to the side when he should have been like the kind of like workhorse just underneath the 2 actual bigger stars. But they never got behind Joe and AJ in that way. And then when Hogan comes over, he doesn't like the look of Samoa Joe. So I think, I can't remember if it was him or Bischoff or somebody just deemed him too fat. And it was like, oh, really, come on. So that's why he got shunted off to the side in that era when he should have been treated like a legend. Instead, he's like completely disrespected. So it's no surprise he left for WWE. And AJ as well, they never found the right way to present him. Well, whilst really they'd already found it. Like, he didn't need to put on this big convoluted gimmick or with like the Ric Flair.
Yeah, he didn't need to pretend Ric Flair.
Or when he was taking down the Aces and Eights in his old like grumpy emo phase, which to be fair, is a prelude to him figuring that out really well in New Japan. But in TNA, it just didn't work. This is AJ Styles. Why is he brooding? Like, this is not right. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff that didn't quite make sense. Also the Samoa Joe main event Mafia era where he just drew a dick on his face. Like, I don't know what that was about. It was really strange. Yeah, I feel like TNA should have made these guys bigger deals, but through their own incompetency, bad booking and Vince Russo, it just never happened.
Is probably correct.
Well, the meme of who's this in the Impact Zone type of stuff, that happened for a reason, and it's a jokey meme thing that still exists to this day, wrongly applied to AEW because it's not a thing they do. But it's just the TNA thing was like they'd have their own guys, but they would actually push the former WWE guys as soon as they came in. I forgot about Bobby Lashley. He beat Samoa Joe at a Bound for Glory. Like, there's all this like crap that just constantly kept them down because their WWE name would eventually come over and take over. And for me, that's why they failed. I think you said earlier you wanted to talk about kind of where they failed a bit. For me, that's one of like the biggest reasons they never became that second place.
Yeah, let's specifically talk about TNA's legacy as like the second biggest American promotion. Why it failed to hold that spot, because like for years through the 2000s into the early 2010s, they were that de facto number 2 promotion. They had a national TV. They were on national TV on Spike, which happened as you sort of pointed out before we recorded this. They got on Spike in the weeks after this match happened. This triple threat match we were talking about happened. They're on national TV, drawing over 1 million viewers regularly. As many people have pointed out, when AEW weren't drawing 1 million viewers every single week, TNA was able to do it. But they weren't able to sustain it. And in the through the 2010s, they were taken off that prominent TV place. They struggled to find a position, and they really have. I feel like they're a total remnant of their former self. It's like the ship of Theseus. They even still the TNA that they were back then, because they've had so many replacements and they've had so many different homes and so many different wrestlers that like they're still TNA in name, but really they're a completely different promotion to what they are. And they're at this point, they're like sort of subservient to the WWE, fighting for scraps, fighting to get like trainee wrestlers on them to beat their champion. And WWE's not even giving them that anymore at this point. And how did it happen though? Like, what happened? And I think you sort of really outlined what you said there. Like, they fell into the trap of trying to be too much like WWE. They got people in like Vince Russo, like Hulk Hogan, like Eric Bischoff, who only understood one way of doing it. They wanted to be like the market leader, and they wanted to try and beat the market leader by doing what the market leader was already doing, when the thing that was putting TNA on the map was exciting matches like the one we talked about, like the X-Division, wrestlers like AJ Styles, like Samoa Joe, who hadn't been in the WWE and were super exciting for people to discover and find out and see them wrestling, like, and it being like, wow, I've tuned into this, and it's like I'm seeing something that's from the future, but it's right now, and it's on a different channel.
Like, they went from, within like a 5-year period, they went from an exciting X-Division opener to their TV shows to Eric Bischoff pretending to play an acoustic guitar. Like, what are they doing? Like, what is this? A complete shift away. Yes, there were some DNA things like the 600 ring and not really focusing as much on the X-Division, which I feel like that's like the bread and butter. That's one thing this current era at least gets right. They realize the importance of that X-Division, and they have for quite a while. But yeah, at the time, it was just almost like a to and fro battle, where you've got this amazing style trying to break through, but the people at the top are still stuck in the 90s, and they're still trying to do that kind of slower main event style, which it's an interesting time, because obviously we know now that X-Division, that quicker style, it did break through, it did influence the wrestlers of the future, and now that is almost the house style. But at the time, there is this battle, and you can kind of feel it when you watch TNA. It's an interesting time. Like, I talked about AJ Styles versus Sting from 2009 when I guess I won one of Doc's shows, and in that I looked up just in like the prep for it. I was like, I remember there being a problem with TNA converting these viewers to buys, and for me, this is where the AEW comparison stops. There is now no like, if you're talking about AEW failing in comparison to a TNA thing, you're now being dishonest, because the thing with TNA was that they could never convert those TV viewers into pay-per-view buys. Like in 2009, like AJ Styles Sting at Bound for Glory, we're talking like 30,000 in the conversion of over a million or so. This here in this era, you're talking 10 to 15,000. Like if you're getting like 1 million viewers and that's your conversion rate, when you look at AEW's, which is what like 180,000 at times, like it's not even in the same league. There is no comparison to be made there. And for me, that was the other reason. Yes, there was the booking stuff or whatever, but like as a business, they could never convert those TV viewers into pay-per-view buys.
Yeah, well, look, I'm just doing some quick research here, and it seems like the biggest pay-per-view rate that TNA did, and this is like the upper estimate, was 60,000. And that would be a disaster for AEW. That number. And that's the best they ever did. And that was shortly after this, Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe, the first meeting that those two had. And I think there's a lesson for AEW in this, in looking at what happened to TNA, and that is like, know who you are, know what your strength is, and know what you're offering that your fans want. Know why people are watching you. And I think that's something that AEW has struggled with at times. Like there has been times where they have tried to do what TNA did, and it's like, we're going to try and attract WWE viewers by being like WWE. Well, these people, what they want is WWE, then they might come over for a little bit. Ultimately, if WWE is going to be able to offer what WWE do better than what another company is going to, because that is who they are. Whereas if you know who you are and you know what you offer and you know what your fans, what people are actually tuning in to watch, then, and know what differentiates you as well, crucially, then you're going to be able to offer something that is different and exciting. And when people tune in, maybe someone who really likes WWE is going to watch it and going to go, I don't like this. I prefer what I'm watching in WWE. But there's going to be someone who doesn't like what WWE is doing, who goes, wow, I'm really glad there's something different on TV. And I feel like that's when AEW is at its best, is when they're doing things differently. And I think as well, there's also something to learn in being comfortable at not being first, and being comfortable being an alternative. Like when TNA, I think, really jumped the shark and went down the gurgler very quickly, was when they got Hogan, when they got Bischoff, and they were saying, we're going to compete with Monday Night Raw and we're going to put it up against it, and it lasts for a couple of weeks and you look like a loser. Like then you look terrible. And they sacrificed so much of what was making them special. Like they got rid of the 6-sided ring. They had so many old blokes coming in who were taking TV time from the people like Styles, the people like Joe, who were the reason that TNA had a groundswell behind it through the 2000s. And these are things that I think AEW is learning and has learned. I think there's just always going to be that temptation though. And it's like there needs to be something in the creative booking room or whatever. I know they travel around or whatever. There always needs to be something like a sign up that is saying like, we are an alternative, because there's always that temptation to be, because they're never going to be bigger than WWE. WWE is so huge, so vastly huge, and so backed by like giant amounts of money that AEW is never going to be bigger than WWE, but it can always be a successful alternative. But there's just always going to be that temptation, because there's always going to be people who are saying like, you need to be more like WWE because WWE is the biggest, so that means it's the best, rather than, no, maybe we're not going to be McDonald's. Maybe we're going to be like a really, really good restaurant.
I mean, I guess a little plug on this is Rich Latter on his YouTube channel. He did a video kind of just talking about the various things that people and perceptions people have about AEW don't watch, just get wrong, essentially. And when I was watching it, I was just immediately reminded of when I posted a column for Laws of Pain talking about, should Kenny Omega go to WWE or AEW? And at the time, like the amount of comments I got where people just could not fathom a world where the wrestling world changes. Like they just couldn't fathom it. It's like, well, WWE is the biggest, so obviously he should go there and be stupid if he didn't. It's like, but you can change the wrestling world. And that's just that idea of even doing that seemed like a wild idea at the time. But in a way, we'd seen it proposed in TNA already. But because it had failed, I don't know if that kind of broke people's perceptions. And that's when I bring back what we talked about earlier in that period before TNA, where you got so many big money mark, as they called it, little like idealistic promotions possibly going to get set up or whatever. So when AEW happens, it was like, oh, we've seen TNA, we've seen all those other ones fail. Why would this be any different? Type of reaction. But you didn't have that feeling if you were watching, which is like that's one key difference to this. If you were watching New Japan, if you'd watched All In the year previously, if you're watching Being the Elite and you could feel that swell of support, like the Double or Nothing pay-per-view and the TV deal were no surprise if you're actually watching this stuff.
And just for clarification there, well, clarifying a couple of things. There was a month in 2019 when AEW had been announced and Kenny Omega hadn't officially signed for them yet, which is what Imp is talking about. If you're a if you're a fan who like started watching AEW in 2024 or something, and you're like, wait, Kenny Omega, is he going to sign with AEW? Wasn't he there from the start? No, he actually wasn't. There was a month or so there where, like, looking back now, it's very obvious. But at the time, it was like, maybe he's going to show up in the Royal Rumble, guys. Who knows?
I mean, the Young Bucks have teased it. Maybe we could get it verified. But the Young Bucks have teased that there were offers from WWE and there was good money. And they obviously had to think about it. And then, unsurprisingly for me, they went with changing the wrestling world over taking the pay. Not that they didn't get paid, like they're doing good now. they got their man in Tony Khan, but at the time it was just interesting seeing people's different reactions because previously the only competitor had been TNA and they weren't really a competitor, and then every other promotion kind of bounced off. Really at that time the second biggest promotion wasn't American; it was New Japan. They were the biggest actual competitor, I guess, within the wrestling bubble. Not obviously mainstream America; it was still TNA. But like within the actual wrestling bubble, New Japan was that one. And every time there was a New Japan pay-per-view, Twitter was like a cesspool of like the WWE bots, as we call them, or the grifters, just taking the mick out of it, saying how it's actually rubbish. That's where a lot of the ire came for the Will Ospreay Ricochet match. Wasn't the fact that it was all flippy and this new thing. It was the fact it happened in Japan rather than on WWE, which is a trend we see to this day. This is why the rivalry with WWE was the most predictable thing in the world because we've lived it. We've lived it through TNA. We lived it through New Japan. In a way, with WWE NXT as well. It was the same thing. And the exact same ways of posting or whatever that existed for ages. So it's nothing new. The way that you get the grifters with AEW and whatnot.
It is
I was gonna jump back to when you were talking about the like AEW's identity and kind of like knowing what they are. I happened to earlier this week listen to your fellow Aussie, Alana Pierce, talking about writing on the new God of War game. And she was saying that whenever they came across either a temptation to do something or was struggling to feel like, well, what should this character do or whatever, they had this thing which they wrote right at the start. And every time they struggled, they would go back to this document, which is pretty much what you're saying, just told them, what is this game? What is this genre? What are we doing? Or almost like laid it out. And basically every struggling question could be answered by that. And you watch AEW now, it feels like they're managing to fend off every other temptation as if they've got a document like that. Or something like
they
like
should. If they don't, they should.
Yeah, just in my mind, like, we are an alternative. This is our style. This is our genre. This is who we're trying to appeal to. And I feel like when you watch the show right now, there is just that strong feeling of they are leaning into all those alternatives. As you say, as if they've got that document, which is an interesting video if you care about video game writing. But yeah, it was it's just cool to watch AEW at the moment. And obviously we're drifting a little bit from TNA, but it's because the influence is just like so kind of naturally curves into it.
Well, I mean, even to the point where like TNA was sort of run by Dixie Carter, who is the daughter of a billionaire, daughter of Robert Carter, billionaire founder of CEO of Panda Energy International, who bought TNA very early on off Jerry and Jeff Jarrett, and sort of owned and ran it for a number of years until all sorts of stuff happened with the ownership.
Oh, dear,
Let's not get into that. We don't have time to talk about the Smashing Pumpkins
I don't get
and
to
Jeff
talk about
Jarrett and Global, and let's leave it. We'll put a
I don't
cap
get to
on
talk
it.
about pyramid schemes. All that stuff.
Oh, mate. Anyway, look, let's just sum up. What an awesome match, man. Like,
Oh, so
as I
good.
said, you could roll this out at a pay-per-view tomorrow and people would say, this is 5 stars. This is incredible. This is amazing. What a match. 3 incredible performers as well. As I said, it's fantastic. I'm so happy that Samoa Joe has become like the kind of world champion that he and kind of featured almost like legacy veteran act that he deserves to be in AEW. I'm glad Christopher Daniels is around as well, and what an amazing send off that he ended up getting. You know, be giving his retirement to Hangman Page and being, you know, the reason that Hangman Page sort of started to see the light after seeing darkness for so long. And yeah, look, AJ Styles, the door's always open. You can have a better retirement than what you did. You can have a retirement against Will Ospreay, who is essentially like, or Kenny Omega, like 2 of the wrestlers that directly are like from the lineage of the AJ Styles style of wrestling. Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay are direct descendants of that. And AJ, the door's always open.
I believe in you. You don't have to be too MAGA to drop it, AJ. I believe in you. I believe in you.
Yeah. Imp, is there anything further you'd like to say about this match, about these wrestlers, about TNA generally?
I mean, I guess one thing is, I just highly recommend you go back and watch this match. So as much as I feel like we've done a decent job just selling it and its importance and everything. But it's when you watch the match, you get those amped emotions as you're watching it with the rhythms that we praise and everything. You just feel it. It's one of the things where, you know, how people talk about how great Ricky Steamboat Macho Man is, as if it's like the greatest match of all time, and then you watch it and it's actually just a bit dated and boring. This match actually is all of those emotions that people talk about in terms of like an older match that is like the most amazing thing. It's like, no, genuinely, this is the match that set the future. And you feel it in your bones when you're watching it. And I was saying to Sam before we started recording that I just arrived so amped. I was like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this.
And you know what? It's free on YouTube. TNA have this free on YouTube. Yeah. I'll put it in the Discord about typically before I release. If you're not part of the Social Discord, number 1, you should be. But number 2, if the match is free on YouTube, if like a promotion has put up the match, typically a few days before the episode releases, I'll put it up there as like, this is your homework for before the next match guide comes out. So this will be sitting on the Discord if you want to go and watch it. And I don't know if you don't know how YouTube works, but know how Discord works for some reason. There'll be a link there for it. That would be a very weird person. Knows how Discord works, but can't search YouTube for this match. Anyway, for that one person, the link is in Discord. And yeah, look, it's a breeze. It feels so quick. It probably goes for about 20 minutes or so. I didn't get the time for it. But,
it's 22 and a half minutes.
But it goes so quick. Yeah. It is a quick 20 minutes. So yeah, highly recommend going back and watching it just to be, you know, blown away by what is a fantastic match. And thank you, Imp, for joining me. Very much enjoyed doing this episode. It was a blast to go through and talk about these wrestlers that I've enjoyed for a long, long time. And thank you for recommending it. Before we go anywhere else, where can the good people find you?
You can find me over at Imp's AEW Adventures here on Social Suplex Podcast Network. There's the channel there where I post every single episode. I am on social medias. I've locked my X account so it doesn't get taken over by the Musketon. But like it's there if you want to private message me or whatever. Discord's probably an easier way to private message me. I've actually got notifications on for that. So my phone, whatever. Yeah, every single week I'll be posting my AEW Adventure, which is a highly edited episode where I script myself and get it all wrong, as Sam knows too well, multiple takes, but I get there in the end. Everyone stuff. But yeah, so that comes out on the same day that this show comes out. So if you've not had enough of me, you could get more of me. Talk about the week that was of AEW. This might, I'm not even going to try and guess if it's a special show with AEW when this comes out. But yeah, you will hear me on the same day, just in a much shorter 30-minute variant if you want a little bit more.
Yeah, excellent. And I highly recommend jumping into the Social Suplex Discord if you're not already a member. Great place to talk about wrestling. I am also pretty much not on social media at all. I jump onto Twitter once every 2 weeks to post this episode, and then I get out, and I sometimes reply to people who've said nice things to me 2 weeks ago when I posted my last episode, and say sorry for the slow reply. That's a very slow reply. But yeah, look, the Discord is a great place to chat to all of the hosts of the podcast here on the network, and also there's a whole bunch of people where it's a pretty big Discord at this point, and it's always popping off. There's always someone talking about something. There's always interesting conversation going on there. So jump in there if you're not already a member. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time. I have got a really cool episode coming up, Imp. I am talking about Killshot versus AR Fox, Hell of War with Rich Latta.
Yes.
And I may have a special treat, a special set of insights from someone who was part of this match, who may know very intimately some of the things that went into this match.
Or Dario
I'll
Cortez.
leave you with that teaser. I'll leave you with that teaser.
Himself from Lucha Underground.
If you know anything about who Killshot and AR Fox are, Dante Fox is, Killshot and Dante Fox are, and if you know anything about Rich Latta and know anything about me, you could probably put 2 and 2 together at this point to understand what I'm talking about. But I've got that in 2 weeks' time. Really excited about that. It's a very fun episode, and also another hell of a match for you to dig your teeth into here on the AEW Match Guide podcast. Thank you again for joining me, Imp. It's a blast to have you on, as always. And thank you for listening in, everyone. If you enjoyed what you listened to, please rate and review. Make sure that you listen to all the podcasts we've got on the network. And I will see you again in 2 weeks' time. Killshot, Hell of War, text message, DMs that we got, Rich Latta. I will see you then. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the AEW Match Guide podcast. If you enjoyed the show, then you can subscribe on the podcast app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Also, feel free to let me know on Twitter at Sir_Samuel. I'd love to hear from you. The AEW Match Guide podcast is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network, where you can find many other fantastic podcasts discussing not just AEW, but all parts of the world of professional wrestling. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. I'm Sam Brown.
In business, there's no room for guesswork. Every shipment matters. Every deadline counts. When you're trying to keep operations running smoothly, the last thing you need is uncertainty. That's why reliability is at the core of USPS Ground Advantage. From the moment your package is first scanned in, it moves through a secure nationwide network, aiding in a timely and accurate delivery. You get near real-time tracking so you can keep up with your shipments. And with affordable upfront pricing, there are no hidden fees or surprise surcharges to throw off your cost sheets. It all adds up to predictable deliveries you can depend on. Because knowing your logistics are handled lets you focus on everything else: your customers, your team, and the future you're building. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to start shipping with confidence. USPS, official shipping sponsor of the NHL.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.